I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me. Yeah, wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Find another.
Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. It's a Tuesday. I thought about doing a full Braves review today, but I'm not going to do one because we know the Major League Baseball season is long. But I will say right now, the Braves have 7 wins and 10 losses, 3 games below 500, but we know last year they were below 500 until August, and they won the World Series. So even though they are off to a bad start, I think they'll be just fine. And if I'm not mistaken, Dansby Swanson recently either broke or tied a record that's been around since 1913, I believe, and that is someone who struck out at least one time in the first 10 games of the season for 5 straight seasons, which we know by now that Dansby Swanson is a phenomenal fielding shortstop. But just like the shortstop they had before him, Andrelton Simmons, he is average at best at the plate. So I am ready to see another shortstop besides Dansby Swanson. That's just my opinion. But today I'm going to be previewing the 2022 football schedule for the North Carolina Tar Heels, and I will get into that coming up here in just a minute. Let me quickly do a quick review of the NASCAR race from this past Sunday. Of course, they were at Talladega, and I want to send a thank you to NBC. Hopefully somebody at NBC will see this video and tell them thank you for allowing Dale Earnhardt Jr. to jump over to Fox and help out Mike Joy and Clint Boyer up in the booth. I never was a big fan of Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s racing because I always thought he only got in the sport because his last name was Earnhardt. But as a commentator and an analyst, whatever you want to call him, I think he's great. And I think he brought a lot of energy to the booth on Sunday. But Ross Chastain picked up the win. It's his second win of the season and his second career win. He joins William Byron as the only drivers who have multiple wins this year. Austin Dillon comes home second. Kyle Busch third. Kyle Larson fourth. Martin Truex Jr. fifth. Eric Jones sixth. Chase Elliott seventh. Michael McDowell eighth. Alex Bowman ninth, and Kevin Harvick rounded out the top 10. And Eric Jones, I believe, will get a win sometime this year. I don't know when and where, but I think he will win sometime this year. So it's going to be good to see the 43 back in victory lane when he picks up that win. And back in action this Sunday afternoon at the Monster Mile in Dover for the 11th race of the 2022 NASCAR season. Now on to my North Carolina preview. And we know by now that I've never been a big fan of Mack Brown. Only coach I've ever seen that coaches for 90 years and wins 8 games a year, and people act like he's some great coach. He's not. If you look at his career resume, outside of those about 5 years in Texas where they were a top 5 team, he pretty much wins 7 or 8 games every single year. And people act like, oh, it's Mack Brown. Like that means something. Just like Jeff Fisher in the NFL. Jeff Fisher coached for 100 years, and if you look at his record, he was pretty much 8-8 every stinking year, and they talk about how great Jeff Fisher is. I don't understand it. So you wouldn't think I have North Carolina winning that many games, but at the same time, you have to remember they're on the weaker side of the ACC, and of course, we know that Virginia Tech is going through a coaching change. Virginia is going through a coaching change. Duke is going through a coaching change, and Georgia Tech should be going through a coaching change. So they're definitely on the weaker side of the ACC. It's pretty much them, Pittsburgh, and Miami, and the rest of them suck. I don't like their roster any better than last year, but since they play on the weaker side of the ACC, it's hard to only have them winning 4 or 5 games, even though I don't like their roster. But if we look at their schedule, they actually have 2 off weeks this year because they open up the season on August the 27th, which is a week earlier than most teams. So since they open up at the end of August instead of the 1st of September, they'll be getting an additional off week. They open up the season with all 4 non-conference games in a row with one of their off weeks sandwiched right in there. They open up August 27th against Florida A&M, and then they'll play Appalachian State and Georgia State before their first off week in week number 4, when they'll come back and play Notre Dame, and then they'll kick off their conference season. Now, of course, we know that Notre Dame is in the ACC in baseball and basketball and every other sport except football. Football, they're still independent, so it still counts as a non-conference game. But we do know that Notre Dame has in their contract that they have to play 4 ACC teams every year, and it rotates every year which 4 teams they play. This year, one of the 4 teams they play will be North Carolina, and then after that, they'll kick off their conference season against Virginia Tech, and then they play Miami and Duke, and then right after Duke will be their second off week, and then they'll come back and play Pittsburgh, Virginia, Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, and NC State. It used to be they wrapped up the season with Duke, but now they wrap up the season with NC State. I've got them going 4-4 in the ACC, 7-5 overall. I think they'll lose their non-conference conference game, whatever you want to call it, to Notre Dame. But I do think they'll beat Florida A&M, Appalachian State, and Georgia State. And then in the ACC, I think they'll beat Virginia Tech, Duke, Virginia, and Georgia Tech, not because the Tar Heels are going to be good, but because those 4 teams are going to be a hot pile of doo-doo. So again, I've got them beating Virginia Tech, Duke, Virginia, and Georgia Tech in the ACC, and then beating Florida A&M, Appalachian State, and Georgia State in their non-conference games. So 4-4 in the ACC, 7-5 overall. What say you? Do you agree? Is that too little? Is that too much? Or am I spot on with my prediction? Please feel free to let me know. Again, I'm not a big fan of their overall roster, but I think the fact that Virginia Tech and Duke and Virginia are all 3 going through a coaching change, I think they're going to be terrible, and Georgia Tech is going to be terrible just because they suck. So I do think they'll go 7-5, which is about what Mack Brown normally does. So nothing spectacular, but not bad. But now, of course, if you have not heard, they have brought Gene Chizik back to coach their defense. But Gene Chizik is one of those names people hear like, oh, we got Gene Chizik. But then when it comes time to get on the field, he sucks. So I don't think it's going to help much, but it should help a little bit because their defense has been flat out awful the last 2 years. So it should go from being flat out awful to just being awful. So again, I've got them going 4-4 in the ACC, 7-5 overall. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. I got to thinking that I'm so good at sleeping that I can do it with my eyes closed. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.